Hi everyone, and welcome to this masterclass on online trainings and remote teachings provided by SuccessFactory Consulting Group. My name is Christian and I'm very happy to guide you through all these different videos and to share some insights with you how to probably improve your skills for giving online lectures and conducting remote teaching. Before we start, maybe a few words on myself. In my day life, I'm working as a teacher and researcher at Salzburg University of Applied Sciences. And besides that, I'm also happy to be part of the SuccessFactory Consulting Group, where I have the pleasure to deliver different types of trainings and consultings in a frequent basis. As you probably can imagine, the last couple of months have been pretty tough for me with all this pandemic, and I guess you know. So typically I would open such a training right with a slide saying motivation to highlight the motivation for all this stuff. But in that case, by intention, I decided to call this one the plot. So if you reflect on the last couple of months, well, basically I felt like the guy straight behind me. So out of nowhere, university was closed, trainings were cancelled, and everything has been moved to remote settings. The competence for this was, let's say, improvable. So it was a cold shock, and it took me on an emotional roller coaster ride from paralyzation to panic, from resignation to acceptance. Well, but in the end, it feels like, okay, let's face it. So finally, in the end, we definitely can see some light. So as you all know, if there is a will, then probably we can also find a way. So what happened in the last couple of months? Well, after accepting reality, we started to consider how to elaborate content in a remote setting, how to deliver trainings, how to give lectures. And in the end, all the way, it brought us to some light. So we were able to develop some new competences. We learned about some different things that worked out and some other things that didn't. But today, I think it's valid to say that the different challenges that we encountered finally turned into opportunities. And this brings me to the point, what will happen in the future? So hopefully pandemic is yeah, is in its last phase. So we can ask the question, what of all these new competences will remain? And the thesis here is that digitalization has come to stay. So probably some of our new abilities can help us to improve our teachings and lecturing in the future in a certain way. But the remaining question is, what's the new normal in future? How can we shape it? And what does this mean for me as a teacher or as a trainer? So from my perspective, I think we're still on a journey. So things are in flow. Yes, we learned many things, but there are so many uncertainties, like what will be the future setting and structure of trainings? Will everything go back, or will there be a combination? Hopefully not everything will stay remote. I really miss the personal contact, but all these competences and methods that we learned, where will they bring us to? And what else will happen there? We have seen such an evolution here in digital competences as we have never seen before. So in my perception, as mentioned earlier, all things are in flow and there is no silver bullet available. There is no single solution where someone can tell you this is how you make it. I think we are on a journey and we still keep learning and practicing. And of course, this also implies to do some experimenting and reflecting on all the things that we tried out. So our task basically here is to conquer the maze, and this is done one step after the other. And on this journey, I will try to give you some support and I will try to deliver some content which maybe could be valuable for you. So on basis of that, what are the training goals? So first of all, I tried to make a dissection of all remote stuff that we found. I tried to provide some overview and structure on didactics and communication in an on-site setting and a remote setting. Of course, a lot of technology and infrastructure, how to handle different aspects. And one of the key elements is how to organize such a training or teaching environment and how to plan and moderate the choreography of such a training, which can be slightly different than to what we know in an on-site setting. So to give you a help for getting started, I really try to get you guys started. So for every topic that we are discussing, I try to provide a practical entry point with some initial concepts which you really could follow step by step just to get started and to further develop your own skills and knowledge. So what's inside the box of this masterclass? Basically, we have a package with 6 different lectures, and all these lectures cover several videos. The idea is that you proceed here in a sequential manner, so one video after the other, but this is not mandatory. So if you have some particular topic that you are interested in, like how can I bring my handwriting to a training, how can I plan and execute some exercises with my students, then you, of course, you directly can jump to the concerning video. But for the basic plan, it's intended as a sequential manner. So what's inside the box now? So in the first part, like the one that we're already in, we try to discuss some basics, like what's in the box, of course. And I also try to give a brief introduction to communication and rhetorics as a basis to further make a dissection of all the on-site settings that we have and start the consideration how to transfer it into a remote setting. This theory background provides the basis for the subsequent steps. So in the second one, we talk about presentations. So we will consider what is important if you talk with your students or your participants and how to transfer it to a remote setting, like how to make yourselves visible, as just right now, as you can see me in front of the picture, which I guess is much nicer than just hearing voice over PowerPoint. So here we will consider some technical setups to provide your students and participants with a physical image of yourself talking. The next lecture further elaborates on the infrastructure and technology that you could use on the trainer side. So basically it's about organizing the work on different screens, how to get a good audio and video. And I'm also happy to share some of my favorite gadgets with you, which I find useful during such a training or lecturing session. Of course, the suggestions on my favorite gadgets are related with different companies and OEMs. But here I have to admit that's not an advertising, that's just a random selection of what I find useful and is not a suggestion for buying or something like that. Yeah, then after infrastructure and technology, I take a little bit of time for one particular competence, which is drawing. As you probably know, in on-site trainings, it's not a good idea to, to torture your participants the whole day with PowerPoint and reading what's on the slide. So there is more didactic value in developing pictures, in drawing, because this gives you more freedom to communicate what you want to communicate. And of course, as if you're not in front of a flip chart where the people can see you, we need to consider in more detail how to integrate drawings in such a remote setting. So here we want to discuss the basics of graphical facilitation. I will demonstrate you some tools, technologies, and basic elements, but I don't go into too much detail. So if you're interested in graphical facilitation, there is a ton of really good videos out there which can help you if you want to experience that. Yeah, and finally, in this part, we do not only consider how to draw on your computer, but I will also show you some options how you can make use of plain handwriting with pen and paper and how to integrate that in your lectures. Yeah, lecture 5 is something very important because as you all know from the learning pyramid, the best success you can achieve if people are acting, if they're doing something. So exercises or case studies are a fundamental concept of every training and should also be integrated in lecturing at university. So here we spend some time on the consideration how to transfer such exercises in remote settings. And I will use Mural as my favorite tool, which basically is a canvas-based tool that I use to demonstrate how to plan, execute, and facilitate such exercises. Yeah, and in the last part, we are approaching the big picture of such remote settings. And here we are going to discuss the anatomy of lectures and trainings in an on-site setting. And then we are going to do a dissection and consider which elements can be transferred to remote or how can we compensate for shortcomings, such like the worst thing, the missing morning coffee. No training without morning coffee, not only because I'm strongly hooked to caffeine, but also because this one is a central element that we use for relationship building. Yeah, and basically that's the content of the training and some practical guidance. So the course concept, it doesn't integrate explicit exercises because most of the work is done on your computer, maybe it's done on your particular teaching or training situation. So my suggestion is that you watch the videos. If it's a theory part, then you probably reflect on it and consider how you can transfer this to your particular situation. And if it's a practical part, then maybe you want to take time, download some tools, experiment, or just practice what you just learned. Yeah, and the most important thing, like always, it's good if we like our job. So I really tell you, enjoy the journey, and I hope that you really can find some things as motivation or inspiration and some practical hints that could help you to, to figure out how to survive in this new normal. So see you in the next video where we are starting with the basics on rhetorics and communication. Bye.